He had everything: power, money, control. But after 10 failed blind dates, Ethan Cole was ready to give up on love altogether. That is, until a last-minute setup sent him to a quiet roadside diner, where a tired single mom in muddy sneakers looked him in the eye and didn't care who he was. She didn't dress to impress. She didn't try to flatter him. In fact, she almost didn't show up at all. But what happened next would unravel everything he thought he knew about connection, loyalty, and what it means to be truly seen. Before we dive into the story, comment below where you're watching from. Enjoy the story, everyone. The 11th reservation wasn't supposed to happen. Ethan had already told his assistant, his PR director, and the infuriatingly persistent matchmaker from Hearts and Minds Elite that he was done. 10 painfully curated, professionally vetted women. All beautiful, all poised, all completely uninterested in him, only in what his name could do for their lifestyle. He had endured conversations about yachts, private schools, fashion launches, and once, an entire monologue about dog spas in Geneva. None of them had asked him anything real, not even once. So when Alina, his assistant, mentioned one final meeting, not a model, not an heiress, just someone different, he almost walked out of the office. "You're wasting your time," he said flatly, not even glancing up from his tablet. Alina didn't budge. She said yes. "And she doesn't even know your last name." That made him look up. "She thinks your name is just Ethan. She thinks it's a casual coffee. She's a single mom from a rural town. She works full-time. She doesn't have social media. And she's only coming because her daughter begged her to stop being so lonely." There was a pause. "What time?" he asked. 3 o'clock. It's a diner off Route 47. Where something less? New York. He almost smiled. At 2:56 p.m., he pulled into the gravel lot behind a chipped white building that smelled like old coffee and fried potatoes. The diner was nearly empty except for 2 truckers, a bored waitress chewing gum near the counter, and a girl in the corner booth with her hair pulled into a lazy braid, wearing a faded green hoodie and jeans with a tear near the knee. She glanced up, not expectantly, but just to register him the way one would register a passing cloud. Then she looked down again. Ethan stood there for a second too long, adjusting to the lack of pretense. He walked over. "Hi, I'm Ethan." She looked up again. Her eyes were tired but sharp. "Hannah, sit down if you want. I haven't ordered anything yet. Wasn't sure you'd show." He slid into the booth across from her. No handshakes, no fake smiles. Just the clink of water glasses and the low hum of the overhead fan. The silence stretched. "So, what do you do?" she asked eventually, not flirtatious, not fishing, just conversational. "I work in tech," he said simply. "Software." She nodded. "I work in reality. Grocery store cashier, part-time cleaner, and full-time chaos manager." He raised a brow. "My daughter," she clarified, 5 going on 15, "has opinions about everything, especially my love life." That made him huff a short laugh. It was the most honest sentence he'd heard on a date in years. The waitress came by, and Hannah ordered a grilled cheese with a side of pickles. Ethan asked for coffee. "You're not eating?" she asked. "I already did." She didn't press. For the next half hour they talked, but not about yachts or spreadsheets. She told him about the time her daughter tried to microwave a crayon because she thought it was a candle. He told her about how he used to skip meetings and ride the subway just to feel normal for 20 minutes. She didn't laugh at his money. He didn't flinch at her exhaustion. At one point, her phone buzzed. She looked down, frowned, and sighed. Everything okay? My neighbor. She's watching Ellie, but her shift started early, so I have to head back. Ethan nodded. I'll walk you out. She blinked, surprised. You don't have to. I know. Outside, the wind had picked up. Hannah zipped her hoodie and pulled her hair over one shoulder. Well, she said, stuffing her hands in her pockets, this was not terrible. He almost smiled. That's the best review I've gotten in months. She glanced at him, amused. Don't take it personally. I don't date much. Don't have time. Or energy. And I don't exactly come with a blank slate. He didn't move. Neither do I. They stood in silence again, this time a little softer. Then she said something he didn't expect. You seem lonely. He didn't answer. She turned, walked to a beat-up sedan, and drove off without asking for his number. But he couldn't stop thinking about her. About how she hadn't worn perfume, hadn't checked her reflection, hadn't once mentioned what she needed from him. He liked that, more than he wanted to admit. That night, he didn't go to any events. Didn't answer any emails. He just sat in his high-rise apartment, looking out at the skyline, wondering what 5-year-old Ellie looked like when she smiled. Wondering why it felt like something had shifted inside him. The next morning, he asked Alina, what's the name of that town again? He hadn't planned to go. He told himself it was curiosity. A passing interest. A mental detour from a brutal quarter's end. But as the car rolled out past the city, through winding roads and into stretches of open land where the trees were taller than the cell towers, Ethan realized he was chasing something he hadn't named yet. Maple Ridge wasn't on any of the investor maps or media circuits. It had one grocery store, 2 churches, and a post office that closed at 4. The houses were plain, some with chipping paint, others with little plastic chairs on the porch. Children's bikes leaned against fences. A dog barked in the distance. Everything looked lived in. Alina had found the address without asking questions. She always knew when to step back. Ethan parked half a block down and walked the rest, careful not to attract attention. He wasn't wearing a suit, just jeans, boots, and a jacket he hadn't worn in years. The house was small, 1 story with peeling white siding and a dent in the mailbox. There were crayon drawings taped to the window. One showed a smiling stick figure beside a heart and the word MOM in pink. He wasn't sure what he was expecting. Certainly not to be spotted by a little girl before he even knocked. Hey, are you the guy from the date? Ethan blinked. A small girl, freckles, tangled ponytail, bright pink rain boots, stood on the porch with her arms crossed like a tiny sheriff. You're not the mailman. No, he said slowly. I'm Ethan. I know. You made grilled cheese with my mom. She frowned. Well, she did. You just drank coffee. He almost laughed. That's accurate. She nodded like a judge delivering a verdict. I'm Ellie. Hi, Ellie. Before he could say more, the front door opened and Hannah stepped out, holding a laundry basket against her hip, her eyes wide. What are you doing here? I was in the area, he lied. There's no reason to be in this area unless you're lost or delivering propane. He shrugged. Thought I'd say hi. She looked from him to Ellie, who had not moved and was now inspecting his shoes. You wear nice boots, Ellie said, unimpressed. Are you rich? Ellie. Hannah hissed. Ethan crouched. Would it matter if I was? Ellie thought. I guess not. But if you are, can I get a new bike? Mine's got a flat. He smiled, not promising anything. I'll keep that in mind. Hannah stepped aside. You came all this way. You might as well come in. The inside of the house smelled like warm bread and laundry detergent. Toys were scattered near the couch. A coloring book lay open on the table with half a unicorn filled in. The kitchen was clean but cramped. There was a crack in one cabinet patched with tape. It wasn't much, but it was theirs, and somehow that made it feel more solid than any penthouse suite he'd walked through. Can I get you something? Hannah asked. I have water, bad coffee, and even worse tea. Water's fine. Ellie climbed into a chair and picked up a marker. Mom says you're not from around here. I'm not. She also said she didn't think you'd come back. He looked at Hannah. Neither did I. She busied herself at the sink. You're not here to sell anything, are you? No. Or offer some weird job or ask if I want to go to Bali? Nope. Good. Because I can't even afford gas to the next town. There it was again, her honesty. Not bitter, just blunt. Like she'd given up pretending for anyone. I just wanted to see you, he said. She froze for a second. Why? He didn't have an answer that didn't sound stupid. You're different. That's not always a good thing. With the last 10 women I met, I didn't remember a single thing they said. With you, I remember everything. She didn't say anything. Ellie broke the silence. Want to see my rock collection? Absolutely. She dragged him by the hand to the living room and opened a pink shoebox filled with glittery pebbles, a button, and what looked suspiciously like a chicken bone. Ethan listened to her explanations with the kind of attention he usually reserved for merger meetings. Hannah watched from the kitchen, her face unreadable. Later, after Ellie went to her room to draw very important rainbow stuff, Hannah sat across from him at the table. You really don't have to be here, she said. I know. Men like you don't usually drive out to the middle of nowhere for single moms. I'm not men like me, he said. She looked at him, searching for a catch, a motive, a sign he was pretending. I don't have much to offer, she whispered. My life is messy. I live paycheck to paycheck. I haven't been on a vacation in 6 years. My idea of luxury is hot water that lasts longer than 5 minutes. I didn't come for luxury. Then why? He hesitated. Because when I left the diner, I didn't feel empty for the first time in a long time. That quieted her. Outside, the sky was turning gold. Ellie ran back in, holding a dandelion-like treasure. Make a wish, she said, handing it to him. He looked at Hannah, then closed his eyes. When he opened them, neither of them asked what he wished for. But he stayed a little longer. And when he left, Ellie waved from the window like he was someone worth missing. He told himself he wouldn't visit again so soon. That showing up twice in 1 week might seem needy. But by Friday, the excuse that he was in the area stopped working even on himself. So he called. Just once. Just to check in. Hannah didn't answer. He tried again the next evening. This time, she picked up on the 3rd ring. Sorry, she said quickly. Things got hectic. Ellie got sick. Just a cold, but I've been juggling shifts. Do you need anything? He asked. There was a pause. No, she said, but her voice betrayed her. He didn't push. Just said, I'll stop by Saturday. Bring soup. And an air filter. She didn't argue. When he arrived, she looked tired but a little relieved. Ellie was wrapped in a blanket on the couch watching cartoons with a tissue box under one arm and a juice box in the other. Her nose was pink. Her smile was crooked. You look like an old grape, Ethan told her. I do not, she said, beaming anyway. I'm a beautiful zombie princess. He laughed and handed her a new coloring book. Mom says you're not my dad, but I can pretend you are for fun, she added casually. Hannah nearly dropped the bowl of soup she was carrying. Ellie. It's fine, Ethan said gently. Pretending is a compliment. But he noticed the flicker in Hannah's expression, the unease of blurred lines. That night, after Ellie had fallen asleep under a pile of stuffed animals, they sat outside on the front step with mugs of lukewarm tea and the porch light buzzing above them. I didn't ask her to say that, Hannah said quietly. I know. She attaches fast. Too fast. It scares me. She's a kid. They don't know how to fake it like we do. I'm just saying, don't promise her anything you're not ready to keep. He nodded slowly. And what about you? She looked away. I'm not the one getting bedtime hugs and declarations of love. Ethan didn't answer right away. What if I want to be ready? That's not the same as being ready. The silence stretched between them, thick with questions neither wanted to say out loud. Then Hannah stood and went inside, leaving the door open behind her. He didn't follow. Not that night. The next day, she texted him first. You forgot your watch. It's on the kitchen counter. He hadn't even noticed. But when he came by to pick it up, Ellie threw herself into his arms like she hadn't seen him in years. "You missed my tissue mountain," she declared. "I'll make it up to you." He brought her puzzles. Hannah brought him coffee. They didn't talk about the night before. That was how it went for weeks. He'd come by with groceries, with supplies, with dumb jokes. He installed a better water heater. Helped Ellie build a birdhouse. Once, when Hannah worked a double shift, he made dinner. Burnt the toast, undercooked the rice, and still got a hand-drawn thank you note from Ellie that said, "You're okay at food." And then, on a Tuesday morning, everything cracked. Alina called. "You need to prepare," she said. "A local paper ran a photo of you at the grocery store, holding hands. With a child." "Ellie?" he asked, voice sharpening. "Probably. It's vague, but you know how fast these things spread." By noon, 3 gossip sites had picked up the story. By evening, there were photos of Hannah's house online. Someone knocked on her door with a camera. She slammed it shut. She didn't open it again. Not even when Ethan came by. "I need space," she texted. "It's not safe." He called. Left voicemails. She didn't respond. 2 days later, a lawyer showed up with papers. An anonymous tip had triggered a welfare investigation. Not serious yet, but enough to scare her. Ethan found out from Alina, who had contacts in the system. He drove straight to Maple Ridge, his hands shaking on the wheel. She didn't answer the door. So he knocked again. "It's me," he said through the door. "Please." It opened. Slowly. Hannah looked like she hadn't slept. "Ellie's scared," she said. "She thinks she did something wrong. She's been hiding her drawings because she saw her face online." "I'm sorry," Ethan whispered. "This wasn't supposed to happen." "Well, it did. And I can't protect her from your world. I never wanted to bring her into my world. I wanted to come into yours." Her eyes brimmed. "That's not how it works, Ethan. People like you don't stay. Not when things get real. I'm still here. For now." There it was, the wall. Not built out of pride, but fear. He stepped back. "Do you want me to leave?" She didn't say anything. So he did. That night, the house was too quiet. Ellie drew 3 broken hearts on her coloring page and hid it under her pillow. And Hannah sat on the floor of the bathroom, back against the tub, trying to breathe. The headlines didn't stop. By the end of the week, a tabloid ran a grainy, zoomed-in photo of Ethan holding Ellie's hand outside the diner. The headline read, "Secret Family? Tech Mogul's Small-Town Scandal." The article speculated wildly. Was Ellie his hidden daughter? Was Hannah an ex? Was this a PR stunt? Hannah read it 3 times. Each time, her stomach twisted tighter. She'd fought hard for stability, for peace. And now their quiet world was cracking open from the outside in. When Ellie asked why people on the internet thought Ethan was her real dad, Hannah didn't have an answer that made sense to a 5-year-old. That night, she unplugged the Wi-Fi. She didn't respond to Ethan's texts. Not because she was angry, but because she was terrified. The next evening, a knock came again. Same rhythm. Same quiet. She opened the door a crack. "You can't keep showing up," she whispered. "It makes it worse." "I'm not here for press," Ethan said. "I'm here because I care." She stepped outside and shut the door behind her. "You don't get to care from a safe distance." He blinked. "I'm standing right here." "No, Ethan. You're standing in your world, trying to step into mine when it suits you. But mine doesn't come with off switches. There's no PR team. No security detail. Just rent due on the first and a kid who cries when cartoons end too fast. I never said I couldn't handle it." "No, you never said anything. You just showed up with gifts. Fixed things. Like I was some problem to solve. But I don't need a savior. I needed a partner." He looked down. "I didn't mean to make you feel small." "You didn't. I already did. You just reminded me how small my world is compared to yours." She started to turn back toward the door. He reached out. "Hannah, wait." She paused barely. "I didn't come here to fix you," he said, voice low. "I came because when you looked at me, you didn't see the money or the company or the headlines. You saw a man who didn't know how to breathe anymore. And you handed me a paper cup of bad coffee and made me laugh. I haven't laughed like that in years." Her shoulders tensed. "Then why does it feel like you're leaving?" "Because you've already decided that I will." The silence cut deeper than shouting ever could. She turned the doorknob. "Tell Ellie I said goodbye," he added quietly. "Unless you don't want her to know I was ever here." She didn't turn around, but she didn't close the door either. That night, she sat by Ellie's bed as the girl slept, tracing the small curve of her fingers. She remembered how hard it had been after Ellie's father left. The nights she cried into her coat sleeve so Ellie wouldn't hear. The hours spent calculating grocery money down to the penny. The fear of being too much or not enough or forgotten. And now someone had looked at her not with pity, but with longing. It scared her more than loneliness ever did. In the early hours of morning, she opened her sketchbook. She hadn't drawn in months. This time she drew his hands. Not perfect, not polished, just real. Hands that had built an empire and still knew how to hold a 5-year-old's crayon drawing like it was priceless. When she was done, she tucked it behind a family photo on the fridge. A quiet truth she wasn't ready to throw away. 3 days passed. No messages. No calls. She thought about him every time she passed the birdhouse they painted. Every time Ellie laughed like a hiccup. Every time she caught herself looking for a car that wouldn't pull up. And then on the 4th night, she opened the front door to take out the trash. There was an envelope on the steps. No name. No stamp. Inside, a single photo. It was of her and Ellie, blurry but warm, taken from across the street. She was tying Ellie's shoe, crouched on the sidewalk, hair in a messy bun. Ellie mid-giggle. On the back, "I didn't fall in love with your world. I fell in love with you in it." Underneath that, "I'll wait, as long as it takes." She stood there for a long time, the envelope clutched in her hand, tears drying on her cheeks. Then she whispered to the wind, "Why didn't you say that sooner?" But maybe she realized he just had. The first snow of the season came quietly, blanketing Maple Ridge in a hush that made even the mailboxes look softer. Hannah stood at the kitchen window, watching the flakes spiral down like paper confetti. Ellie was asleep in her room, wrapped in her favorite blanket, the one Ethan had brought after their first week of knowing each other. She hadn't answered the note, hadn't called, hadn't gone after him. But every time she passed that envelope on the fridge, she paused. Every time Ellie asked when he was coming back, she swallowed guilt like a stone. And every time she stood in the shower too long, just letting the water run cold, she thought about what she'd told him, about saviors and smallness and leaving. But he hadn't left. Not really. She just hadn't let him stay. That morning, while Ellie napped and the tea kettle hissed to life, Hannah opened her inbox to find a message she almost missed. Subject line, "You were right." Sender, Ethan@holtsystems.com. No hello. No fluff. "I spent the last 2 weeks trying to figure out how to stop wanting to come back. I failed. So here's the truth. You don't need me. Ellie doesn't need me. But I've never needed anyone the way I need you both. And maybe that's the scariest, most hopeful thing I've ever written. E." She read it twice. Then again. And then she grabbed her coat. The diner was half empty, like always. She knew he wouldn't be there. But her hands needed to move and her thoughts needed space. She ordered coffee and sat in the same booth they'd first met in. The corner was a little stickier now. The window had a crack spidering along the edge, but it still held something sacred. She took out a napkin and wrote 4 words. "We're still right here." That evening, Ellie helped her tape it to the window. "So he'll see it if he ever drives by," she explained. Hannah didn't say that he probably wasn't anywhere near Maple Ridge anymore. Didn't say that the snow might tear it loose by morning. But she hoped. Hope was a fragile, stubborn thing. And sometimes it stuck. 2 days later, someone knocked at the door. Not just a knock. That knock. 1 beat. Pause. 1 more. She opened the door without asking who it was. Ethan stood there, his coat dusted with snow, his hair a little longer than before. There were circles under his eyes, but he looked more alive than she'd ever seen him. "I saw the napkin," he said. Her throat tightened. "Good. Diner coffee still sucks." She nodded. "Always will." Ellie peeked from behind her legs. Her eyes went wide. "I knew you'd come back." Ethan knelt. "Did you miss me?" "I left you a picture," she said. "It's under the couch. I drew us with rocket boots. I always wanted rocket boots." Ellie hugged him without warning. He hugged her back with a gentleness Hannah hadn't known men like him were capable of. When she finally spoke, it was quiet. "I'm scared." "I am too," he said. "But I don't want to be alone anymore." "You're not." They didn't talk about the tabloids, or the pressure, or the mess waiting on the other side of this fragile piece. Instead, they sat on the couch, Ellie in the middle, asking questions no one could answer. "Will we have pancakes tomorrow? Can we get a dog? Do rocket boots come in pink?" And somewhere in that mess of crayons, tea, and silence, Hannah reached for his hand. He didn't squeeze it, didn't pull, just let it be there. Safe, steady, present. That night, when the snow piled against the porch and the world outside faded into hush, they stayed close. Not lovers. Not yet. Not promises sealed in silver or tied with certainty. Just a man who came back, and a woman who finally let him in, and a little girl between them, safe, warm, and giggling in her sleep.